Sticking to environmental horrors, is fracking responsible for killing off an alarming amount of livestock around the nation? Authors of a new report looked into 24 different case studies in 6 different states where hydraulic fracking is taking place to find out why livestock is getting sick and dying. Their conclusion? It's the fracking chemicals. For example, in Louisiana, the study found 17 cows that died after being exposed to spilled fracking chemicals for only 1 hour. In central Pennsylvania, about 140 cattle were exposed to fracking chemicals. Half died. And in western Pennsylvania, after a nearby pond used by pregnant cows was contaminated with fracking chemical, half of those calves born were dead. And if this is what fracking is doing to the animals, what might it be doing to people? As the study's author says, exposed livestock are making their way into the food system, and it's very worrisome. They live in areas that have tested positive for air, water, and soil contamination. Some of these chemicals could appear in milk and meat products made from these animals. Several nations in Europe have already banned fracking, including France and Bulgaria, while the UK has suspended the practice. But here in the U.S., fracking continues in the face of new evidence that it's killing livestock and perhaps poisoning our food supply. Elizabeth Royte joins me now. She is an environmental writer at The Nation magazine, whose latest article is titled Fracking Our Food Supply, and she's the author of the book Bottle Mania, Big Business, Local Springs, and the Battle Over America's Drinking Water. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us the story of Jackie Shike, or Schilke.
Jackie Schilke, yes, Schilke. Jackie Schilke. She's a 53-year-old rancher. She lives with her husband, Steve, in the northwest corner of North Dakota. She's been ranching for about 10 years. She's got, she never let the oil and gas companies on her property, but a couple years ago, one of them put a rig on her property line. There's 32 other rigs around within 3 miles of her property. But when they put this one on the property line, there was a blowout, there was some problems with a leaky well, and she started noticing problems with her cattle. They started limping, they had infections, they dropped from 60 to 80 pounds a week. The mothers stopped producing milk for their calves. And in 5 of the cattle, their tails dropped off. Eventually, 5 of them died. Actually, one very expensive bull had to be shot, and 4 other cows died.
Wow. And is there pretty clear evidence that this is the consequence of fracking having presumably contaminated the water the cattle are drinking?
That's the problem. It's very difficult to prove cause and effect in these cases. We don't know what's in all of these fracking fluids. Jackie Schilke, like most ranchers, hadn't done pre-drilling testing of her water, of her air, of her soil. You don't know how these chemicals are moving through the environment, but ranchers across the country are noting similar things with their animals. I'm not saying that this is an alarming, widespread trend. I want to be careful here. I want to say that scientists who have looked at this are worried, and that this might be an early warning for us, looking at these cattle who are dying of respiratory failure, who are dying of infections, massive organ failure, and those are the animals who are not making their way into the food system. But what about their herd mates who have survived and might be sick but aren't stumbling around and who are making it into the food system?
So people who are drinking milk and eating meat products, and I'm assuming this is not obviously limited to cattle, is fracking around chicken farms and everything else. The food that people are eating may itself be contaminated with carcinogens, with oil derivatives and things, these fracking chemicals?
Great question. It's another part of this great unknown, because farmers aren't required to tell the people they sell their cattle to if they're healthy. If they can make it into the truck and they look healthy, then they go on to the feedlot or to be raised up to market weight somewhere else. So farmers aren't responsible for the insides of their cows. If they look good on the outside, on they go. And at the slaughterhouses where they are inspected, the inspectors are mostly concerned with pathogens and with pesticides. And they're looking at gross anatomy. They are not testing for the residue of fracking chemicals. So we really don't know what's going on.
Amazing. Now, when fracking was first rolled out, I believe Halliburton developed this process. Dick Cheney basically pushed through or pushed around or whatever an exemption so that the EPA could not find out what the fracking chemicals were, and this wouldn't be covered by the Clean Air, Clean Water rules. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No.
Go ahead.
No, you're exactly right. Thanks to Cheney, there are exemptions from parts of the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Toxics Release Inventory, the Resource Recovery Act, so that frackers can kind of make these discharges into the environment,
Elizabeth,
and they're not in violation of the law.
Elizabeth, we just have 30 seconds left. I'm sorry for the tight time. Is there any possibility that we're going to start regulating fracking?
Oh, yes, already we are. EPA has tightened the air emissions regulations. They're studying water, and I think there is going to be tighter regulation coming. Let's hope the regulations are enforced and that we start to allocate a lot more money towards studying the potential impacts of these emissions and contaminants through the food system into plants and animals.
Yeah, this is a very, very big concern. Elizabeth Royte, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
You're welcome.